Welcome. Hello. It is Mysterious Forces Live. It is Saturday, April 13th, 2019. Resistance is futile. Like and subscribe below. Resistance is futile. I love playing with that thing. It's dangerous as hell, but I like it. Definitely shouldn't have any kids playing with lasers. I'm just a big kid. Welcome. I hope you're having a great Saturday night. I had a little bit of a crossed wires on my guest tonight. If you're expecting to see Laird Scranton, my apologies. Once we reconnected again, we changed it to the 19th, which is next Friday. So next weekend, I'll have Laird Scranton on Friday, and then Saturday, the 20th, I'm going to have Hot Rock Scupa join on. So that's a fun-filled weekend next week, and stay tuned for that. That'll be great. And I'm glad you're here tonight. So I reached out to my good friend Sabrina Campbell, who's a clairvoyant psychic medium, and she deals with animals primarily. That's her primary focus, but she does quite a few things. She's into the woo-woo, and that's okay. I know that I don't always do the woo-woo very much here on Mysterious Forces Live, but I make an exception with Sabrina because I like her, and I find her to be a person of integrity. So I don't mind having her on. It's just been a crazy week. This whole business with Julian Assange being taken into custody and obviously kicked out of the Ecuadorian embassy. And just kind of the fallout from the anticlimactic Mueller report. And I don't really have my ear to the ground in the QAnon world, but I wonder if the QAnon people are going crazy right now with their heads spinning. Changes in the Department of Homeland Security, with the Fed. There's political shenanigans going on. So there's a lot of crazy power play stuff going on. So it's been a wild week, a lot of wild energy out there. And I'll talk to Sabrina about some of that. And I'm just going to take a peek, and I see Fascination Street with Jimmy and Mika. Hello, UFO Gandalf, rather. Davey, Pursuing X. Of course, the professor's in the house. And there's Lisa F. I saw her earlier today in a Richard Dolan chat room. So hello, Lisa F. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be peeking in at the chat as we move along. Without any further ado, from Ontario, Canada, the Great White North, please welcome Sabrina Campbell. Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. So how are things up there? Are you guys thawing out yet, or is it still pretty cold?
Finally, we're thawing out. It's the temperature itself is pretty warm, but the winds are still wintry-ish. It's kind of cool, but we have no snow right now where I am, so this is good.
That's cool. So how cold does it get at night right now?
Oh, Lord. It's probably like 0. So what's that, 32 for you guys?
Yeah, 32 Celsius, or centigrade, rather.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
It's like,
Fahrenheit.
Yeah, Fahrenheit. That one. It's cool. That's what it is.
It is. No, that's okay. We're in that bubble right now here in Arizona where it's kind of getting warmish during the day. We're starting to that mid 70s, lower 80s thing. It even pushed up well into the 80s early in the week, but it's still nice and cool at night, like down in the 60s. So there's a little bit of that weather left. And I can't believe that here on this show we're sitting talking about the weather, but what it is I crave cooler weather. I'm envious of the fact that you get an extended springtime, where here it's just kind of like spring for like a few days, and it just is kind of like summer. So it's the weather's a little monochromatic here. So since we talked last year, I know that you haven't gone to any events yet, and you have some things going on. But we were talking about all of this wild energy earlier, and I was wondering if you'd like to touch base on kind of this chaotic energy that we're all sensing in the world right now. What do you make of all this?
Oy, it's a cluster, many things it is right now. There's some crazy energy right now, and what the world is trying to have us see, allow us to see, is that change is needed. Change in every aspect, in which puts us in a place of balance. It's not about being overly positive. It's not about being overly negative. It is about being, or working at being, balanced. So accepting the bad, moving forward with the good, and really, number one is, and I'll say this forever, everybody, including the men, have to feel their feelings, and people have to give themselves patience to work through this, because it is crazy, as we all see.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you attribute this energy? Is this just welling up in humanity collectively? Is this the end result of us having had enough time with the internet to make that kind of social interconnectivity more complete and perhaps more powerful now than it had been, say, 10 years ago? What factors are at play here that's stirring everyone up? Because it's not just politics. It's not just the world of politics. It's new scientific breakthroughs are happening. There is genocide happening. You know what I mean? Like, and there's some saber rattling. And as I've said many times, I don't really do politics outright on this show. We're talking about big picture, general topics here. But, you know, we don't want war. We don't want refugees and immigration problems. We want people taken care of either in their country, or we want people treated with compassion and respect when they do try to find refuge somewhere else or immigrate somewhere else. So, you know, it's like these forces of, and I'm trying to get apolitical in the description of this. It seems like it's the forces of the old world, of older traditions, fighting the contemporary moment and the future. It seems like we're trying to push into the future, and there are some, and I don't mean this in a loaded political way, but this progressive push towards the future and a newer way of being, a newer way of seeing our society. But then there are these forces that just kind of want to maintain the status quo, or even pull it back from the status quo. What are your thoughts and feelings on these types of opposing forces?
Well, I think right now, what is the not the cause, but this has been in play for thousands and thousands of years. It's been coming to this point for all of that time. Those who we don't see very often, or maybe perhaps we can't see them, have been planning for this time frame for thousands of years. What it is, in my opinion, is the change. It's the balancing of leadership. So those ones that are arguing or steadfastly staying in the old ways are those that choose patriarchal leadership. And patriarchal leadership is a good aspect of leadership, but it's only half of it, right? The other half is the matriarchal. So what we need both of those to step up and equally contribute something to the table. And whereas the matriarchal is having to be a little extra aggressive right now, maybe assertive is a better word, extra assertive right now, the old patriarchal ways, that old mindset, which is choosing not to see the natural progression that's happening, those are definitely, those ideas are holding back. Those beliefs are holding back the development of us as humanity. But they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, excuse me, we need them in order to find the balance throughout this whole transition. So will they transition? I'm not sure. That's their choice. They can or they can't. But everybody who is transitioning is seeing the benefits of the between patriarchal and matriarchal. So it's
right. No, I understand.
Intense.
That's a great point. And, you know, not that the Me Too movement necessarily encapsulates feminism in general. It's just an aspect of it. But this empowerment of women, the empowerment of the
Mhm.
Black community, the empowerment of the LGBTQ community, a lot of segments or demographics of our society that have kind of been on the fringe or treated as second-class citizens, maybe
Mhm.
in terms of equal pay or job opportunities or educational opportunities. You know, this push towards the feminine and the powerful, I think a lot of people feel threatened by this.
Mhm.
And you know, I can't help, you know, I'm trying so hard right now to dance around these kind of core political talking points that we hear
You're
so
doing a
much.
good job.
But you know, how we can embrace the feminine, and you know, I guess being feminine or being for feminism or being for the empowerment of women is not to be anti-male or
Right.
anti-man. Just in the same way that being pro a group like Black Lives Matters doesn't mean you're anti-white. It just means that you're giving an extra bit of voice or a bit of extra bit of attention to a population that has been ignored or treated unfairly. So I couldn't help but feel when you were talking that you were talking about that the female energy right now has to be more assertive. And at first you
Mhm.
said aggressive. And I think that really is part of the cultural viewpoint, in that when you take groups of people or segments of society that have been oppressed or suppressed, and
Mhm.
they start to assert their power to the people who have been maintaining that status quo, that does look like aggression to them. And they
Mhm.
do feel threatened. And it's really not, and it's not aggression, it's using the same level of assertiveness that the old white power establishment has used over the rest of us, you know, since we've had culture in modern society.
Yep.
So I I I'm hoping that, you know, women are so much different from men. Not that this is a big gender talk either, but women have different ways of finding solutions and working out problems. And I think that women will be more successful at this time, if I can give my opinion,
Mhm.
because how was I going to say this? Women will lead by example. I think women will get out there and do the hard work and do what needs to be done. And I think the old power establishment is full of promises and lots of words and very little substance and very little deeds. But when you see women who are out there engaged in their communities and engaged in whatever cause it is they're working for, they're out there actually doing something. They're engaged in real life. They're not just using talking points. They're not just blurting stuff out on social media. They're out there in their
Yeah,
communities doing something. And,
they are.
you know, that's not to say that men don't do that. They certainly do. But I think this new wave of feminine energy has that kind of push behind it.
Mhm.
And do you see any relationship with these energies? Like, and I'm reaching here, and tell me if I am. Would this have anything to do with maybe more ancient ways, Wiccan ways, old goddess religion energies that might be coming back, or we're finding that we need that for that balance that you're talking about?
Absolutely. And what if you notice each sex has to do the opposite of what is expected of them. So it's not just the women who have to get more assertive, but the men have to get more into their emotions, and recognize that their emotions cannot be suppressed, because from that comes this distance. And in this distance is where mental health issues begin. They have space to begin. So it's, yes, the women have to be more assertive, but the men also have to be in touch with their emotions enough to step out of the side to recognize that the woman is being assertive. So it is a complete 100% give and take both ways, from the women and from the men. And it's this balance is coming from a time when sex didn't matter. It wasn't a thing. So it's not coming from a time or a place where women were like Amazons and they could, you know, handle themselves and be amazing warriors and such. It's far before that. Far before that. Even before this planet was anything. It's recognizing that each being has their own the word establishment, that there is no need for a difference between gender. It's about embracing both sides equally and recognizing the strength that comes from a 3 or 4-sided leadership rather than a one-sided, like the patriarchal. So the women, the matriarchal brings a team to the table and says, what do you feel? What do you feel? What do you feel? What do you feel? But sometimes the decision isn't made all that easily. When the patriarchal comes in, they can help with making the decision, because men, a lot of the times, know in a very short amount of time what they want to do. So it really is, the feminism is exactly what you said before. It's not anti anything else. It's 100% inclusive. Everybody is equal, period. So that, to me, is true feminism. It's not that stuff where people are going crazy about women are the best and men drool, women rule, and blah, blah, blah. You know, I drool. I'm not, you know, I don't have a side, really. I'm pretty sure in a lot of my past lives, I was a man. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I got a deep voice. I build muscle quickly. I'm sure I haven't been a female more than I've been a male. And I can feel from the different lives, or from the different feelings I get from explorations back in time, if we will say, is that there's not a distinction, really. When we really truly come into ourselves as humanity, there is no need for any distinction. We're the same.
No, absolutely. And I can attest myself that some of the best times I've ever had, I was drooling during them. So that is a definite.
Oh, that's awesome. Perhaps I do.
No, I got that. So, when you're doing your own soul searching, or you're doing research, what practices do you do yourself? What is your spiritual routine? And what do you do to tune in and sort out information and sort out impressions? And I'm sure that you check in with yourself, so to speak, on a regular basis. What's that private process like for you?
It's interesting. Funny enough, it's private, but it includes animals. So, like, literally, meditation, still meditation for me sometimes is difficult. My body loves to move. So I, a lot of times, don't try to force, you know, like when you're angry, sometimes it's just best if you clean the house and you get it all done in 4 seconds because you're angry, than
Right.
not doing it. It's the same, like, I move. So I usually go down to my chicken coop in the beginning of my day, and I literally spend some time with my chickens. I don't know what it is. I'll say it forever in my entire life. I love chickens. They just take everything and they make it slower. And I don't know how to explain that any better than that. It's like they're in every single moment. I can see them looking up at the sky when they're outside, you know, looking around to see if any predators are around. And so I start my day off loving them up and cleaning up their stuff. And then a lot of the times what I do before I do a reading is it's like a 5-minute check-in. I check in myself. I, you know, breathe deeply, very deeply. But there's no real set routine per se, you know, like I really am a fly by the seat kind of person. So if today it means I want to go for a run, then the meditation would be a run. If, you know, it was cooking or cleaning, then it would be that. And a lot of the times I think that's where people get stuck, is that they think that there has to be this set time in a day where, you know, sometimes in the day I completely lose my consciousness. I go, gosh knows where, so many different places. But in the same moment, my day is filled with just as many moments of me being aware of everything and picking up that energy. So then when I do a reading, I don't know, I'm very open to whatever comes through. I'm super thankful that most of the time it's correct. So I'm not much of a routine.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how much of that came through. You've been the latency has been kind of locking up your signal, and a lot of what you just said didn't come through, at least on my end. I don't know if the audience is getting it or not.
That's poopy. It's been doing that a lot today.
Yeah, no, it happens. Do you want to rephrase it real quick? I have a feeling that the audience didn't get it either.
Okay, real quick. I don't have much of a routine. I like to let it.
Now, we heard about the chicken coop and all that. It was what you were saying about deep breathing, what you said after deep breathing.
Deep breathing. So I do deep breathing, and then I like to do whatever comes to me. So sometimes it's sitting in the sun to get ready for a reading. Other times it's listening to music or singing. Really, it's anything. It could be running, getting ready. This is all stuff that comes to me. So meditation isn't always just sitting in a spot and, you know, oming. Sometimes it's doing as well.
Yeah, no, I get that. I recently got a dirt bike and I ride off road. I don't ride on the street, but I found that to be very healing, even though I'm burning up that fossil fuel. I find it to be very healing because I'm on the motorcycle and I'm controlling the motorcycle. I'm watching where I'm going on the trail. And there's a moment where it all becomes one. You're at one with the motorcycle, my body, my senses. I'm watching where I'm going, and I'm just very focused in those moments. And it's not like I have to like consciously process anything in particular, but I go out and I do that and I have that focus on the ride, and I come back and I feel better. And it's not like I've worked anything out in my head in particular. It's actually the physical motion of it. And I also did for a while Shambhala meditation, and we also practiced walking meditations in a circle when I was going to those classes and sittings. So you know, meditation for me, you know, at one time it really meant just sitting in a chair and trying to quiet your mind and trying to let the thoughts go by. I mean, all that stuff. But I actually have an easier time of getting that focus through some kind of activity like riding the motorcycle or playing an instrument. I can kind of fall into it that way. I found a variety of ways to fall into that kind of meditative state of mind. And it is helpful.
It is, especially if you're doing what you love. Like I say, a lot of the times riding horses is really, it's such a repetitive, consistent motion that it kind of allows me to, you know, experience everything in that moment. I love it. I love activity as a meditation, very much so. But I also love the stillness when that's needed.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm wondering if you have, in your work with animals or tuning into some of these other energies on a more grand scale, have you had any impressions about climate change and how climate change is affecting the animal kingdom? And obviously we know what it can do to us, but I'm wondering what your impressions are concerning climate change in particular, and what our animal friends are saying or feeling or experiencing because of this.
Well, they are experiencing deep sadness. It is very difficult for especially the ocean animals who almost have this garbage come up to them rather than them going up to it. But they also understand the big picture and they can really see it. And so when they are a part of the sad part of the big picture, they know that it has a purpose. It's not wasted, you know, and thankfully that they're that sentient, because they're also that forgiving as well, right? So just as much as we might be doing things to damage their community, there's lots of us that are doing things to fix that same community, and they see that, you know, and they know who they can go to and who they can't. So, but they're doing a lot of changing. I mean, birds alone are doing a lot of changing. So it's interesting listening to kind of, you know, the conversations that go on around with animals.
No, absolutely. And I think I started to consider that. I recently saw some information that was talking about the true magnetic north, excuse me. True magnetic north is its location has always drifted to different areas, but it's moving very rapidly. And I think they said like 2 or 3 miles a year or something like that. Like it's gone.
Wow.
In 60 years, magnetic north itself has moved, I think, 37 miles, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm incorrect, don't crucify me. It is moving northwest through the Pacific towards Siberia.
Interesting. Okay, so I've had lots of information about this stuff given to me over the years. Not human information, but from my guide and who I speak with. And he has said, well, he's shown me quite a few times the axis changing and changing and changing. And it's funny because it's not funny, haha, it's funny, interesting, because it changes 37 miles, right? It changes that far in such a short amount of time, but it's done this before.
Absolutely, yes. It's all throughout the fossil record.
Right. So it's not an unusual, it's like a, you know, ebb and flow. It's again, the balance, right? And it's almost like every time that the energy is over to that almost tipping point, I feel, I'm getting information right now that when it gets to that point, everything is hairy-carry. It is crazy. Energies are flippant. They're panic-stricken almost. Like I can see animals in one of the last time frames, just things running from tremors that come from, because the North, in my mind right now, the North Pole wasn't icy at all. And so I can see a lot of things moving because there's these cracking, banging shifts that are going on in the later part of that transition. So I wonder if that's happening up in where the true North Pole is.
Right. Yeah, magnetic north. Yeah, that's interesting. That would be interesting to find out. The geologic, the Pacific plates, there's been, you know, a lot of activity, and I again heard something, not like coming from a psychic or anything like that, but I was watching a scientific video and they were talking about how the chances of a really big earthquake with the San Andreas Fault or up along the Pacific Northwest is tremendous. It's like building up. So they're trying to quietly prepare for the worst case scenario behind the scenes, but I think, as we saw with Hurricane Katrina, that even though the government says we're going to be prepared,
yeah,
we all see that a tornado can wipe out a small town and nothing happens in that town for a week. You know what I mean? Like the Red Cross might show up with some bottles of water and hot dogs or whatever they've got. God bless the American Red Cross. But, you know, when it comes to really getting people's houses rebuilt and getting facilities back on, much like in Paradise, California, from the terrible fires last October, you know, the people in Paradise are without homes, you know, recently. So I just wonder, I used to be really big on karma. Like, I was very much into like, people do this and then they're going to suffer because they did this and that's going to happen. And I don't really have that scorekeeper mentality.
No.
But do you think that in some ways we might be able to look at some of what's about to happen in terms of the climate and geology as humanity kind of getting their comeuppance in some sense? Like, hey, you've got all this technology, you have all of these people, look what you have done to literally change this planet. But there are larger forces than us at work here, and I think we're going to be humbled over the next 50 to 100 years.
Hugely. And the things that are going on, again, is it the comeuppance or is it the shift that created the erratic, crazy behavior and thoughts, right? Like, it's like this shift has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. So like what I mean by shift is I mean the polar shift, right? Like, right. It is an ebb and flow. I really feel like it is. What is it that moves like this when you're playing piano? The
metronome.
Thank you. Metronome. It's like that, only extremely slow. So, but we have to understand that there is an electromagnetic grid around the Earth. So each time something shifts, that whole grid has to go along with it. Well, with it, it's pulling at ley lines, it's pulling at energetic centers, it's pulling at things where magnetic fields are measurable, massive amounts. And they're moving. It's almost like they're moving away from each other and having to realign again. That's how I see it, kind of like a slow ball twisting with a slower outer ball trying to catch up. And so this, I feel, it creates a lot of irrational behavior, disconnect, quite a few different unsavory happenings, mentalities, settings, old beliefs and systems. I get the information that this is all natural. Everything is natural. The garbage and such that's on the earth, and that's not natural. But the thing is there's something that we can do to eradicate most of that very, very quickly. So it's not the real problem. I feel like the real problem is that people are denying that they can create things that can create unsavory results. And even if they're not denying that, then they're denying that we are responsible for that. It's so much deeper than actually what's going on. And it's like all the animals are sentient. All the trees and plants and such are showing themselves up in our bodies. Like, I just saw a post on Facebook that was like a tree that was upside down. Like a picture they took upside down. They flipped it and they showed a lung with the blood capillaries and veins and whatever you want to say. And it looks almost exactly the same, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is that everything is give and take. But what's happening is humanity has put itself for some reason above all of that, rather than thinking it's a part of it. And in that has come this almost like teenage temper tantrum of a time.
It's arrogant. It's arrogance. We have become arrogant.
And it's deeper than arrogance even. It's a disconnect. It's an utter unhappiness with ourselves that is causing a disconnect that creates things like narcissistic behavior, arrogance, many different things. It's not actually the narcissistic behavior that's the problem. It's our brains that aren't able to reconnect with everybody and everything. And because we can't, we know we're missing something. And that's causing many mental issues, even just thinking issues.
Yeah,
it's deep.
It is. I am in awe of the fact that we have more technology than ever, obviously. That's always progressing. And yet, with all of this innovation, technology, health science knowledge, we seem to really kind of be more neurotic and more dysfunctional than ever. I mean, I guess that might be kind of a fucked up thing to say. I mean, it's hard to, I mean, when you judge the Holocaust or Genghis Khan killing off whole populations of people. I mean, certainly history is filled with a long line of atrocities.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so to try to say we're more dysfunctional than ever, I'm not really meaning within that context. I mean, maybe psychologically, because people had to do a lot more physical labor back then to survive. So the work ethic, like if you didn't work, if you didn't produce something for yourself, you didn't survive. So a lot of people's time and energy was caught up in just surviving. But we have so much leisure time. We have nothing to do but use our brains. And I think that lack of physical engagement in the world or that connection with nature has led us to this point where now we're just getting psychologically sick because
Mm-hmm.
we aren't connected in some of those fundamental ways. Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to ask you leading questions. I'm just wondering what your impression
Well,
is of that.
I think that you're bang on there. The thing is you not only worked your butt off way back when to keep yourself afloat, but you had to contribute to the community as well. So you weren't just taking care of yourself, you were taking care of your family first, but then you were taking care of the community right after that. That was the second thing. So it's the fact that nobody works for anybody. You know what? I'm telling you right now that all of these small businesses coming up, there's very few people who can survive on one small business, one aspect of a small business. So if I were to say I were to split my business up into just Reiki, well, I wouldn't be able to survive on just Reiki. I have to break it up for Reiki, and I'm throwing things out there. I'm not saying I do this, but like Reiki,
Right.
neuroscience, making soap for the community, setting up events for the community, and because many jobs give us freedom to do what is our everything is made to do, and we're denying that right now. So not only are we denying habits from within our because we're not contributing and we're not helping each other, but we're also denying our ultimate need to be a member of something. And the whole, now, I mean, I use a cell phone. I have a business. I run my business through Facebook and through different places. But there also has to be that, again, balance. Yeah, okay, use it, but don't overuse it. So it's
Right.
a definite conundrum if we're not able to see which direction we're choosing to point ourselves into.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I took a look in the chat room. I see say hello, goodbye, Pat Breeze. Thank you all for being in there, and thanks for listening and your thoughtful comments. I think it's awesome that you're here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No, they're here to see you. So shifting gears a little bit from some of these global perspectives, I'm wondering, and I'm asking you this because I'm gonna next month, the first weekend of next month, I'm gonna have a pretty well-known atheist on, and his name is Aaron Ra, and he's got like over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. This guy's a pretty big deal with the Free Thought Project, I think, is who he's associated with. But he's a lecturer and all this, and he's a very active atheist. And I certainly am in agreement with him on a lot of stuff. And there is a divergence from atheists for myself. Like I have a line, and I don't know if that really means that I'm kind of agnostic in some certain sense, not in terms of religion, because I don't really believe in a personified deity per se. I don't think we've got a big daddy or mommy up in the sky watching every move we make, rewarding us, punishing us, and all this stuff. I just don't buy into that system of the way things are. And I've been thinking a lot about this atheism and how, like, I very much believe science and I believe in the scientific model, and science obviously works. Here we are as a community online.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this works. And I know that this guy want to be hardcore against magic or ESP or anything like that. And I'm just wondering how you deal with skeptics, or as a person who is a professional clairvoyant yourself, what would your response be to critics or skeptics who are going to try to shoot down the work that you do? And I'm not asking you to defend yourself. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are concerning those kinds of other forces in the world that you might come up against.
Well, I appreciate that everybody has their own view. I think that some of the best conversations that I have ever had in my entire life are 100% respectful, completely different viewed conversations. Like, I love that. I live for it, as long as it's respectful, because as soon as it gets disrespectful, I'm out. I don't play that route, but I love views. I love people's ideas of things and listening to them. And, I love science. Literally, I love science. And the stuff that I do is somewhat unprovable, but talking about it openly with somebody who wants to know for the sake of either perhaps argument, but maybe not, maybe just because they don't know. And so tell me, what is this how do you go through it? What do you feel? That stuff to me it's growing. It opens people up. It gives people an opportunity to question things and move forward, again, respectfully. So
Yes.
My issue is the disrespect that comes from a lot of people who, a lot of times what I hear is that I put emotions into things. Well, I guess I have to, in this idea, I have to be emotionless, and the defensive part of them is allowed to come out and be rude to me. So that I'm usually very firm, and I will very clearly say, you don't talk to me like that, and I won't put up with it. So I'm not treating you like that. So when they're rude, I pretty much school marm them and then ignore whatever the next thing is that they say until I can feel comfortable with, perhaps not getting attacked. But I'm pretty strong. I mean, like, I used to be a bouncer, security in a bar that was pretty happy to have physical things happening in it. And many different points of view, many different points of lives. And my opinion, honestly, is I love it. I love to be. Nobody has to know, but I'm but talk about it. Definitely.
You've been breaking up pretty badly. Whatever you just said, I didn't hear it. I'm going to look in the chat room. I don't know if the audience is hearing you, and I'm not.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Let's see.
Let us know, peeps.
I'm sorry. I know it's buffering.
Yeah.
No, she's still here. I saw it, but no, it's tough. It's I don't know. It's
energy. What it is.
It is that energy. Can anyone hear my dog outside barking? Yeah. Is it? I can. I have a really good microphone. I can hear it in my headphones, and I'm like, I can hear my dog barking, but I don't know if the audience can hear my dog barking. Oh. That's my boxer Gibson at the front door, wanting in, but he can come in when the show's over. So, you are coming to Sedona in September. We were talking about this before we came on air, and you're going to be doing some work there. What are you going to be doing in Sedona?
Well, I'm going to be doing some learning. Yeah, in September. I'm going to be doing learning. I'm going to go to a light language course and learn. I'm hoping that I'll learn my strongest language in light. And so what that is it's expressive, like something that comes from a feeling of needing to move. So like some people need to paint some art with their hands, like get the paint on their hands, their face, their everything. And with those strokes and those colors, they create something that has feeling, and people can feel it. It's not just them. They don't look at it and say, oh, wow, I really made a good feeling here. They put it out on the wall, and perhaps nervous about how people are going to see or feel their paintings. And then the people look at it and they're like, wow, I can feel that. So this is light language. It could be singing. It could be sign language. It could be dancing. So many different aspects. Music, like playing music. And I don't know if I'm allowed to mention that, but there is a show on an internet style program thingy that has to do with light language in many different aspects. And in this show, the way that they portray the singing or the music playing or the whatever it is in such a mysterious mysterious way. That was a terrible wink. But yeah, so I can't wait to do that. I'm excited. Oh, now you're frozen. Am I still frozen? Oh, there you are.
You just now froze. You're back with us.
Oh,
wow.
Keep freezing.
It's just doing crazy things. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is, for the sake of our sanity, I don't really want to cut this short, but I think the technical glitches are probably going to make it hard, because I want to have you back on when we can listen fully to your answers. And it's like I'm setting up a lot of good questions and we're not getting to hear your responses. So it's no bad on you by any means. It's just something that happens, I think, sometimes. Now, I know that the primary way to make contact with you is through your Facebook page, and that's called Sixth Sensibilities, and that's the number 6, TH, Sensa, SENSABILITIES, Sixth Sensibilities on Facebook. That's Sabrina's page. You can get in touch with her there. And I think we'll have some links below. If not, I did. I hit the right button. It's a little distorted. Sabrina Campbell, Clairvoyant from Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And I love it when we talk. Yeah, we'll do this again when we have a better connection, but I think it's a bit torturous at this time on a technological level. So I'll scroll through the UFO Gandalf, Gary Chappelle, hello, goodbye, Pat Breeze, Lisa F, Fascination Street as usual, Lady Zaga. A lot of my old friends back in here in the chat room. I'm glad to see you back in here. Thank you so much for participating. Next week, next Friday, the 19th, Laird Scranton, 420. Next Saturday, Hot Rock Super Joint. He's hilarious. Please tune in, subscribe, like, and share, and hit that alert. Ready? And let's tweak it and wow.